And a very good morning to all of you. Welcome to another edition of Coffee and Stories. My name is Tudose, Tianu, and I'm here today with two wonderful Romanians who accidentally were born in Switzerland and Greece, but they repatriated after all, and they've been here for a long time. One of them is Dino Ebneter, CEO of Mazars Romania, and the other one is Richard Joannides, who was born in Greece, and he founded the wonderful school Verita. They are here to make my job really easy today, to talk about why they love Romania and how they see education in our country, how they each contribute to the development of education for young people in Romania, and to send some messages to those of you who don't live here about what's possible and what's happening right now in our country that's positive. Good morning. Welcome, Dino and Richard.
Hi, Dana.
And so, how come you've been here for so many years? You've been here 15 years, right?
Yeah, it's my 15 years. Yeah.
And what about you, Richard?
98, 20 years.
20 years, a long time.
Long time, on and off. But yes.
Long lost Romanians, both of you. And I know that both of you love the country. So we're going to start with you. Why did you first come here?
A friend of mine convinced me to start a business from scratch. So we were basically a startup in the consulting business for SMEs. There was an opportunity back in 2003, 2004 to serve actually international SMEs in Romania because there was a kind of a gap between the large enterprises, the large consulting firms, and the local consulting companies. And that's how it started.
So you saw a business opportunity?
Yes, and a bit adventure too.
Adventure.
We confess. It was kind of... we were in the 20s, so we were very young, had no family to care about, so we could take a risk.
But you didn't really know everything about Romania?
No.
Only a little bit?
No, we learned the hard way.
The good things?
I mean, it was the beginning was pretty tough because it's like, Switzerland and Romania is like day and night. It's like 180 degrees different. Mm-hmm. At least back then. Now it's a bit changed. I would say that it became almost boring. Mm-hmm. At that time, the adventure factor was bigger. Yeah, but also the hurdles were a bit bigger as well. So it was a bit hard at the beginning to adapt, but after a while, it was kind of a choice. You hate it or you love it, and you have to decide to stay or leave. I mean, there was no. Either you take all or you go. That was the choice. And then, that's how I stayed.
And it's clear what you chose because you
obviously, yeah, I never left. I had no return ticket.
Okay. What about you? 20 years.
I think it's a similar story. I was fresh out of university, 24 years old, with lots of dreams of what I wanted to do. And then I went back to Greece. And I found it quite hard because you had to have a reputation, you needed a lot of money to do something, so I felt like doors were closing on me. My father had a small business here in Romania, and he actually asked me to come up here just to check some things out for 2 weeks. And I was here for 2 weeks, and I called my dad up and I said, Dad, I love this place, and I'd like to stay, and I'd like to give
What happened in those 2 weeks?
It just felt like a fresh breath of air, as if for a 24-year-old who nobody really gives any importance to, you're just a young, pimply-faced guy who doesn't have any experience, and I felt like it just was like the land of opportunity. There was also a charm about it, the fact that it felt like you were traveling back in time. Like if you think of Magheru in the 90s, it was so different than it is today. It was quieter, it was not as busy as it is today. So yeah, it was an adventure. It was exciting. It was just so many opportunities there. Unlike Switzerland, Greece is very similar to Romania in terms of the nature, character of the people. So I also fell in love with the people. They're very open, they're very friendly. So I fell in love with that. And then what kept me here was love. My wife, I got married, I have a family. My home is here now, 3 kids.
Well, you have a son as well. So your kids are Romanian, basically, right? Yes. They're claimed by Romania.
They love it here.
I have a question. I know that your son is 2, and you have a 2-year-old as well, and older children. And maybe for the toddlers, it's hard to imagine right now. But I see so many Romanians who try to prepare their kids. Their kids are, let's say, 10 and up, all the way to high school years. Mm-hmm. and they try to prepare them mentally, educationally to leave the country. It's like their mission. There are so many Romanians who right now do everything they can so that their children can go to college outside of Romania. And it's mind-boggling to me. It puzzles me to see so many foreigners who love the country and enjoy their family life with their children in the country. Do you think that that's something you would do with your children? You have older children as well. I mean, do you feel that if they wouldn't leave Romania to go to college elsewhere, they would lose necessarily?
I think it's a balance between celebrating where you're from. I think you can't just disconnect with who you are, your roots. And I think even if you try to put it under the carpet and kind of forget it and run off, there's always a shadow running behind you. So I think on one hand you have to celebrate who you are and love your heritage and your history and where you come from. At the same time, there is benefit to exposing our children to universities outside of Romania. I mean, but I think the idea would be is go to the United States, go to the UK, soak in all the information, be a sponge, and then come back and do something here or anywhere else. I mean, I can't predict where my kids will go, what they'll do, who they'll marry. I mean, maybe they'll be in Japan, or I would hope that they would be closer home, but you really can't predict. But as a school, I meet many parents who have this agenda of, okay, I want my child to speak only English, or we're going to speak English at home, and I think it's a mistake. I think that parents have to be authentic with their children, speak their native language with their children. I think there is a very good likelihood that they're going to be sending emails and reading contracts in Romanian. So I think they have to be sort of wise in preparing children for international work or adventure, but also knowing that they have some roots in Romania.
And Dino, you get fresh out of college, we have a mic issue. Okay. Fresh out of college, you get a lot of kids who come to Mazars and they start practicing accounting. How are they as wholesome beings? Are they happy being there? Do you feel they are happy with their education? Are they happy to be in Romania? Would they want to stay with you for 2-3 years and then go abroad? What's your feeling for the new generation, for the 23, 25-year-olds?
That's a tough one because we're living in a bit difficult times. There's a lot of confusion around this. They are not kids anymore, actually, but sometimes, they are not. What I feel, they are lack a bit the compass. Yeah, so actually they're looking for a first place to work, a first place to learn. They don't have really an idea what they want to do. I think it's not right. It's not quite fashionable to be an auditor, or a tax consultant, or an accountant. These are, part of these jobs seem to die soon because of technology. But what they want is to get some first experience. Some of them. It's very interesting. Some of them have already very early family plans and they stay. They even relocate to other towns. So they go away from Bucharest. Others have so much the need to go elsewhere. So they look for a way to go abroad. Others look for professional career. You can't really say. I mean, for them the world is open. I find nothing wrong when they want to explore. I was the same. I was with even 20. I was traveling to the States for 4 months. So I spent all my money I had over there, and for me it was a great experience because in Switzerland you'll travel more than 100 kilometers. You find it really far away, and there you drive 400 miles a day. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you imagine that you come back totally changed. These people need to be taught that they have, the world is open for them. I was thinking, okay, what would I answer when you would ask me how to educate my child? I think we need to accept we became global citizen. And I think this is probably what it also for me, because I'm living in the international business for all my life, so I don't know anything else than that. And for me, it's good in Romania, but I don't know, in 10 years, maybe somewhere else. So it would be unfair to take away a child the roots. I mean, I think, they would at the end come back and search for that. And to educate them already as a foreigner, I think it's not right. We all need a home. I have now 2 homes. So Romanian family was inviting me, very kind, and so I have 2 homes where to go. And so this is a bit my concept, and also what I try to explain young people in the company. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the philosophy of your school. And maybe you told me, because we talked before, and you told me how you ended up creating the school, why you had the need to create a different kind of education. But let's imagine that out of your school, even though, does it go all the way up to high school? Mm-hmm. So let's imagine that some of those kids go and work for Mazars, okay? And Dino needs kids who know what they want in life, who are more balanced, who are enthusiastic about their work. Now, why would those kids come out of the Veritas school? What does the school give them to make them balanced like that?
It's a good question. I think there are 2 main factors that we focus on. The first one is that the paradigm of I'm the teacher and I have to give information to you, the student, and the student has to give me back information based on some objectives and some milestones, is an outdated approach. I think information is more like a commodity, like a fast-consuming good. I mean, we have no idea, no schools or people or societies know what the world's going to look like in 20, 30 years. So the landscape is changing very quickly. And information is changing. Every 2-3 years, it's constantly moving. So I think that focusing on information, having kids being walking encyclopedias of information, I don't think your organization wants that, of just people memorizing. The world, I've been in the entrepreneurial world for 20 years, so it's very dynamic, it's very changing, you have to be adaptive. So many schools out there are saying, well, we can't focus on information because of technology today, because the world is changing so quickly. So let's focus on skills of learning to learn. I have over 300 people who work for me except for the school, and one of the biggest challenges is getting people to think independently, to be problem solvers, to have critical thinking. So as a father of 3 sons and also as a school, the goal is, of course, information is very important. They have to go through something like the IGCSEs of the British curriculum, the IB diploma to get into the great universities. They need to know how to take tests, so they need to go through the traditional academic route, which is very important, but also prepare them for real world. And I know we share the same thing, that when we're interviewing people and we're trying to hire them, that's where reality hits. And no intellectual studying is going to prepare you for the real world. So
can I ask you something? What is one question that you would ask in an interview that to you would show if a person is really balanced and happy with themselves? So you look at the CV and you see the right schools and the right scores, but then you want to make sure that person who's 23 or 25 won't leave in 6 months or a year because they have no idea what they want, or that they're not so different from your culture. So what are you going to ask?
Well, for me, it's, we tend to focus on the skill set they bring, yeah? And there is a bit of, I need to induce a bit of a change, because the reality is that these people are coming from university, so they have a diploma, however, good or bad. What I'm trying to figure out in an interview, if the quality of the person is the right one. Mm-hmm. Do they have this critical thinking? When they have no opinion about anything, I know there's something missing. Yeah. So they will just be executing a job, but they will not add any value. and the world today is not about delivering a service anymore. You want, you as a client, you want an experience. You want one that solves your problem. So we try to find people that like this concept of not just executing, because it's gone. I mean, you have machines doing all that stuff. And another important aspect is are these people sociable? I mean, do they have basic skills to talk to me? Mm-hmm. I mean, are they critical? Do they have a question to me as a CEO? If not, I know something is wrong, because they're not curious. I mean, in our job, you have to be every day curious, alert, what's going on. You have to think for your client. Actually, you want to think ahead. And teamwork is so important. We work not only in local teams, we work in international teams, we work in teams with our clients. So these soft skills, which are actually hard skills almost, soft skills are so important in our job. And look at the typical accountant. I look at a typical accountant in Eastern Europe, where they have to obey certain forms and they have to believe to the government. So they're kind of made not to be very flexible, not to be creative. Okay, you don't want your accountant to be very creative, otherwise you're afraid that probably he will mess your numbers up. But the idea is that these are the skills that we need today and tomorrow, because recurring jobs, they will be put in a robot. That's what we are already doing actually. So we build robots, we build technical assistants next to us. So we need to have an open mind also for this transformation that is happening. So technology is great. It's just we need also to accept it. And sometimes I see that we are not accepting it so easy. So it's very much the social skills that I'm looking for, because knowledge, you can get it. You can go to trainings if you're open. You can add a new skill set on you, but if you don't have kind of a mindset that is open, if you don't have core values that are strong, it's very hard. You can't change, the first 7 years home. If you don't have it, you never
That's
get it
Romanian
anymore.
That's the Romanian saying, the first 7 years.
It's not only Romanian. It's also, I saw that back in Switzerland the same. If I had an apprenticeship, not getting that, you're in trouble. You have basically a young person you try to educate a young person, but there is something missing, that there's no fundament, there is something lacking. So, and we look on that very carefully, because the expiry date is so short, Young people don't find it interesting to stay at the place longer. That was for us, for our CV, a no-go. You don't leave a job fast. That means you're a job hopper. That's negative. But this has changed. So we need to be very fast.
So let me ask Richard. So that young person that Dino's interviewing, and he's looking to see if he's a critical thinker, if he's creative, if he has the capacity to stay with the job for more than the first 6 months. What are you teaching those children in your high school program to make sure that they leave being like that?
Well, I think 90% of schools focus on cognitive intelligence, linguistic intelligence, no soft skills.
Yes, that's correct.
So we have to change the paradigm where you have to have a specific curriculum, specific skill sets developed, like you're teaching math, like you're teaching science, in soft skills. We call it social emotional learning. So one of my favorite ones, there are 24 skills we use in our school. One of my favorite ones is resilience. The fact that our kids, no matter how much we try to protect them, they will get hit by adversity, they will fall down, and they have to get back up. Mm-hmm. And that's a skill you develop over time. As entrepreneurs, we face failure all the time, uncertainty all the time. You have to be getting used to it. It's a muscle that you build up, and you're pushing your limits where you don't feel comfortable. And I think in today's generation of Facebook and iPhones and technology, kids want immediate satisfaction. They want things now. They're not willing to wait it through, have the perseverance. They don't have the attention span, the focus to even do that. So we have to develop focus, attention, and then we have to develop resilience in them. You can't be resilient if you can't self-regulate your emotions. There's a lot of science, neuroscience, that says that if something overwhelming happens to you and you can't emotionally deal with it, you're not going to be resilient.
So how do you do it in the school? Give me an example of activities that the children are doing, even, young children in the elementary cycle, that they're doing to build their resilience, to make them empathic to one another, to develop patience, and the value of human interaction rather than just communicating through a social media app.
Well, there's so many. I mean, a simple one is we take the 5-year-olds and we put, the camping flashlights you have on your head when you're camping at night. So we give all 16, 17 kids these flashlights, and we turn off all the lights, and you can see these kids, putting their flashlights all over the wall, and then suddenly you make a big noise in the corner of the room, and all the flashlights go to the sound to see what's going on. And I say to children, you see how everyone's flashlight, everyone's focus, everyone's attention went to the light? Or let's get our books out, and we get our books out, and everyone's flashlights go down to the books. And so I say, look, everyone has a flashlight. We have to teach them that we have this focus, this attention. It's like a muscle. Or when my sons are watching TV and I say, Jesse, Noah, come for lunch. They don't hear me. Yeah. It's not something's wrong with their ear or they don't hear me. It's that they're focused, their attention's on the TV. Only when they turn around, they say, oh, yes, Father. So if we can teach children that they have this focus, this flashlight, and that the flashlight can be very focused on something when you want to get something done. It can be very wide open when you're looking at the forest and not the tree when you're thinking strategically. But most children's flashlight is restless. It's all over the place. Parents' flashlights are sometimes, you're on your phone. Yes, I'll be right with you, son.
I do that all the time.
Or adults or husbands and wives. The quality of our relationships are not as strong or as intimate or as rich. And children, how are they going to go out in the world and do something, build a company, be a biologist, be a scientist, if they haven't worked this flashlight? So that's one of the things we do is we develop the flashlight. We make them understand how to work with it, how to build it. And if their flashlight gets stronger and stronger, then when challenges come, they're not going to be swayed and restless and they'll be more resilient. They'll be more powerful. And I think anyone who really gets anything done in whatever industry, it's sometimes more the soft skills, just as much as it is the cognitive, critical thinking part.
That's right.
And also the restlessness creates an uneasiness in ourselves. And
How many students does the school have?
320.
And they're all the way from kindergarten?
We have from 2-year-olds old all the way to high school.
So nursery to high school. And do you track and see what happens to your grads, to your high school grads?
Well, we're a young school, so we're just going to be getting into that stage now, so we'll be able to see the interesting data. But what we do is we're not reinventing the wheel. So we're looking at great schools that have done this for 20 years. It's data-driven, and so we've seen what they're doing in other countries, and so we're just bringing that over to Romania.
That's right. And we had this conversation before, you get kids who come from schools like Richard's School, and then I feel that a lot of companies really want to give feedback, and that feedback is not always the best and most constructive because they get the grads. I mean, high school grads and college grads. And then there's a shock, okay? There's a clash. The young people come without too much practical experience or practical view on the world. Also without those soft skills that are important, like how to have empathy and how to listen to somebody else, how to work in a team and so on. But one issue that I would like to cover today is the importance of apprenticeships and how schools and companies can work together as early as high school. To me, college is already too late, because if you start putting together the practical side and the theory, not the theory, but the learning and the practical side together as soon as high school, then when somebody's 22, he or she already had 5 whole years to understand what the reality of life when you work looks like. So what do you think about that idea? Is it done anywhere in the world? Because in Switzerland, for sure. Yeah. So you can talk a little bit about the Switzerland vocational education program. That's #1 in the world, and it works great. And there's no... Actually, I don't know how many people know this, but I think close to 70% of all Swiss high school grads go into a trade rather than go to college. And that's also something that helps society sustain itself, basically. So... you start.
Yeah, because the system is extremely powerful, and it allows you a great career without going to university. You don't have an academical degree, but you have in your profession a very high degree. I mean, kind of a master. Yeah, and these skills are extremely valuable. Yeah, so you will not find that anywhere in the world. It just, I think we have it in the German-speaking areas, and Germany, Austria, Switzerland for sure has that system, and it connects reality so much more. I mean, you have professionals going to teach. You're always up to date. So basically, it's not very difficult to update the curricula, because it goes with the teacher in a way. They are all former professionals, so they decide maybe to go full to teaching. Well, if they are German teacher, English, okay, that's a different story. But all around their business, it's very practical. So this is something I know Romania tries to do. But it's not easy because, I was talking to a state secretary saying, the problem is if we are offering that, I need to offer that not only in Bucharest or Timișoara, but also in Tecuci or in somewhere else in the country. And if I do not have partner firms, it's a bit unfair. Right. I cannot. There are also this type of issues, but. We have to start somewhere, and the start has been done. So, in Switzerland, for example, an accountant, doesn't go to university. I mean, you are an accounting expert, and then you need a university degree. But it is already like top. But the big part of even very skilled accountants have not done a university, so they go a different path, and there are different levels they can achieve. So
how soon after high school they start actually practicing accounting?
Well, basically, if you do a kind of apprenticeship, you would start after secondary school. You don't really go to a high school.
Really?
You can do like at the German Berufsmatura. It's actually very close to a college degree. Yeah? So it's just that depending on how good you are as a student, you go eventually another day more. So you have like would have maybe 2 days school, 3 days work. If you do a bit more, maybe you have half a day more.
And how old are you? Can you do this when you're 19, 20?
Before.
Before?
Maybe start before. You basically start with 16, 17. So
okay.
You start to work. And, these kids are dropping out with 19 and they're fully professional. I mean, they can build you a house. Okay? So they have all the skills that elsewhere somebody very experienced never gets. So they have all the technical skills of and all the theoretical and practical skills. So in 3 to 4 years, you train somebody really, really good. So it's very intense, and it's something that needs time to build, obviously, and you need the companies to be open. But you as a company, you want these people to come to you because you also need fresh new employees. So you want the best to stay. Larger companies have more of them, and they select them. So every year they select 1 or 2. So that's how you keep talents in the company. So
I think this is a wonderful model. But in Romania, it's a thing of mentality. Because here, if somebody announces his or her parents, I'm not going to go to college, I'm just going to choose a trade, I think it's going to create a huge drama in the family. Romanian families have been sending or wanting their children to go to college. Somehow it stems from our frustrations during the communist years, where, you know, being an intellectual was dangerous. It wasn't good to be an intellectual, and now everybody wants their children to go to college. And if we continue down that path, we're going to end up with over 60-70% of our college grads doing things that have no relation whatsoever with their degree. So it's a waste of time, money, every possible resource, and the companies lose. When you started your school, you already told me that you were thinking about the future of children and how they learn. But did you interview or did you research? I'm sure you did, but you need to tell me how you did it. What companies want, what they need, you know, to get from children who learn differently.
If you look at a lot of the human recruitment companies or human resource companies that are recruiting people, it's a lot about the soft skills now and thinking independently. Those are the main, and the job market is craving for that. And they're not getting that kind of soft skill set that we need to get out there. And just that pragmatic problem solving. That's what, as a father, I want my children to get out in the world and be pragmatic and problem solvers. So the first time I experienced this was when I was getting my MBA and doing case studies. You know, after so many years of university and grad school, it was only many years later that actually it's an experiential, as if I am that company. You're doing project-based learning. So remembering that in my MBA, we went searching and all over the world to see what kind of curriculums do project-based learning, where children, of course, they have to do assessments, of course, they have to take tests, but part of their learning on every unit that they're learning, there has to be a project behind it, something that's real, that's tangible, that's experiential, that's contextual. And that creates student agency, student passion, because a lot of times, you know, you see, my mother's 85 years old. She's kind of like, her body's breaking down, you know, and she's, you know, almost to, you know, on her way out. But she has so much life in her. She has so much passion in her because she's still so curious about life and asking questions. I see a lot of 15-year-olds today who have less life than my mom because they're like, I'm bored, I don't like this. They're allergic to learning, they're allergic to that sparkle in their eyes. You know, when you were saying about what am I looking for when I'm interviewing somebody? It's, I want that sparkle, I want that drive, I want that passion. Something there that's going to drive them forward despite the difficulties, despite the challenges. So I think through experiential learning, through contextual learning, you have to adapt to the times today. And I think through project-based learning is the best way to do that. And it kind of goes back to kind of these internships that we're doing now with our 16-year-olds that go into actual companies. So if you have a curriculum that has some objectives in math or design and technology or even literacy, have some of those objectives being translated in real life with partnerships with companies. So I'm very happy for some of our math students to come maybe partner up with Mazars and see how it really is. I'll never forget when we were taking a tour in Greece. The shipping business is a very big business. So I remember my first time working for 2 months in a shipping company, and it was just like awe-inspiring to see all these people. And there are so many images and ideas that I took from there that inspired me in the future. So I think you got to get them into the real world as early as possible. And some of them will get hooked. Some of them will get something that will spark their imagination, their creativity. And then when you bring them back in the classroom, they have that aliveness to say, okay, how do we make this practical?
Mm-hmm. You know, the Nordic countries have become such beacons of hope in terms of how education is changing, as much as eliminating homework or having children learn outdoors for most of the time, and very different curriculums where almost all subjects are optional, so you study what you feel drawn to. I feel Romania is still very far away from accepting such a way of learning. We've been the traditional European learners, and I'm not saying it was bad. You know, as a repat myself, I could experience on myself the advantage of having what we call in Romania cultura generală, which is knowing a lot about, pretty much everything. Romanians, of course, know a lot about everything, which is, it's a national trait. But we did study. We did study geography, history, we did, a universal literature, and I could see the advantage when I lived in the United States. I knew in terms of quantitatively, I knew more than young people who came from different countries. I have heard of, many historical events happening in many other countries, whereas don't ask me how many times people would ask me where exactly is Romania and which are the countries that surround it. They had no idea, and they were doing an MBA or they were doing, a PhD in something, but they had no global view of the world, which is what we had. But is that still really important? Because the trend in New York is to homeschool your children. There's a trend. Parents are just taking them around museums and creating experiences around them. And they feel that develops their minds more towards innovation, being entrepreneurs, What is the future going to be? Because some of the people who will be watching this, maybe they would want to come back to Romania with their children, and they're thinking, if my child is now 15, I hopefully can put him into a good school, so they would come to your school. And then if my child is oriented towards math or accounting, audit, they have that kind of mind, they're going to come and work for you. Is that going to make them happy? Is that the future? I just feel we're getting mixed messages from several countries, and who is right and who is wrong. We're more traditional in Romania.
Well, I think there's not an either or. We're talking about cultivating multiple intelligences in children. It's not just one area. So I think it's wonderful being in Romania. You're in Europe. You're so much more exposed to the culture, to the history. I mean, I think one problem with America is it's very insulated. They don't have that international exposure. So I think one of the benefits of my children being in Romania versus somewhere else is that fact that they have that exposure, that European feel to it. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know.
I think, parents have a job. I mean, they have to educate the kids, so not only school. So it is fundamentally important that we educate our kids first of all. And okay, school can do a part of it, but indeed, I realize that small kids are very curious, want to learn a lot of things. As soon as they go to school, they don't want anymore. They are not, and this is wrong. Yeah. So I think this is why probably the systems in the northern countries are more successful, because children have the need to get this information they want. But if you put it in with a hammer, I mean, people tried to teach me French 9 years, and it was not very successful.
It's painful.
But I not that I used to speak some French, but I lost it a bit, and it's a pity. And imagine how much time went and money went in me, and where is it? Mm-hmm. So it's actually a shame, and I did not learn all the time what I should learn. But indeed, what I see in Romania, when I learned to my wife and the people around me, Romanians know so much about everything. It's really true. And I think I'm coming more from a world where we learn what is good for the life. I mean, sometimes we do it naturally, sometimes it's just a bigger part of the life there. But we are more practical. And I looked on. My grandmother was also a bit like that. She was already a business lady back in times, and she was very, very. She was not. She was kind of emotional, but she was very practical. So you need a dedication, in life on something. It's a tough one, but. Definitely Romania, you can find the education you need to be a responsible citizen. to go out in the world to do whatever you want. So I think it's not the country only. So Romanians have been proven to be extremely successful elsewhere. So there are 4 million Romanians abroad. They're very good. I have not heard once an employer saying, with the Romanians have an issue. No, it's the other way around. So I think the skill set that in Romania is teach is not too bad. What is great on Romanians, they have this creativity. I think it's given a bit the context of in Romania nothing is really perfect, but in a way that keeps creativity up. I was just thinking how much people like Istanbul. Istanbul is far away from perfect, but it's so diverse, it's so refreshing. Okay, these times are a bit more difficult, but people want to go there. But it's not Switzerland. It's not a clean place, but still people want to go there. So I think this creativity Romanians bring with them is very, very helpful, and now all Western Europe is actually benefiting from that. Yeah. So probably we bring the other part down here, a bit more, more organization and a bit more concepts. But Romanians have taught me a lot, and what have taught me to this empathy, to be more close to people. I mean, when I came, I kept distance. I mean, it was very clear. At work, there is a respect.
You mean in the beginning?
Yeah. At the beginning, you cannot get close. This is something that you're not doing. Yeah? But it's good. It's something that changed me, and it's a very good skill set if you get that. So if you don't take the feedback to personal, you're becoming almost perfect, as a human being. So
yeah, that's pretty much
to be Romanian is very good. It's just that you should understand, you should be a bit more self-confident, because I think it's so much better than to be cold and analytical and live in a country where it's like in a closed club, It's like that sometimes. It's in Romania we're still living kind of, the real thing,
You're talking about from the perspective of social relationships, right? Do you feel like there's a real connection with people and they're open?
Yeah,
I
but
think
this is also reality. I mean, in the business, it's still not digital everything. I mean, my client wants to talk to me by phone. He wants to see me. Okay, we tend to not to fly so much anymore and all that stuff, but there are still physical meetings. You want to know with whom you deal. You're not just a number, and so this is, I think, in the era of technology, even becoming again much more important that you have. You connect with people. You know what? You don't want to be served by a robot only. So, yeah, it all comes back to these skills that I think we still got nowadays. They got a bit not forgotten, but in the era of Facebook and social media, and you are digital native. You have a double identity. I think this is all okay to a certain way, but there is still flesh, blood, and they're still real people, and I think the difference in the generations now, Y, Z, is already visible. I think this generation Z is realizing, wow, I mean, there is life there, and they seem to have kids earlier. They really look for a work-life balance which is real. I mean, not chilling. I mean, they see things more pragmatic. They fight for a proper job, an honest and fair pay, but I also want to have a family, and so on and so forth. So, there's a generation that somehow got maybe also a bit spoiled,
Yeah, you're trying to be
you know,
diplomatic.
yeah.
I totally get what you're trying to say because when I used to work for this one of the largest European law firms for 4 whole years for their office in Romania, and back then I started when I was not even 21 working with them, and I remember I did not own a pair of jeans by the time I left the company because nobody did. We were in our suits all the time. Work days could end up at 10:30, 11. Sometimes you would work through the weekends, but never, not even once, we thought we should have work-life balance. We're not, this is not good for us. We should change our values or style. We didn't have that kind of thinking process. We felt we were given a great opportunity. We were making more money than our parents. We were working in an international environment, and you know exactly about which kind of atmosphere I'm talking about. So we were a different generation who felt now Europe has opened up to us, and we have to take advantage of whatever is given to us. So we don't claim, we didn't know how to ask. I remember visiting the law firm's London office for the first time. I think I was with them for a year already. So I went there and I just couldn't believe it, and I couldn't understand that they finish at 5. I couldn't believe it. At 5 o'clock, everybody went home. And I remember calling my friends at the office and said, can you believe these people in London? They finish at 5. What kind of a life is that? I couldn't understand it because we were all working day in, day out. And in all around the multinationals who were then in Romania at the beginning of the 2000s. And now I know that the young generation would never stand for that. They would never stand for that. They know it's not right. We have other rights. We have the right to have our personal life, but it's just a different context. And which brings me back to your school. And if you want to talk a little bit about your need to create something different for the children, plus you have that unique nutrition. Is it a nutritional or integrative nutrition program in the school?
I mean, we are what we eat. So in terms of, we just have organic bio menu in our school. So and healthy eating is part of it. They're all elements. Good sleep, food, lifestyle. They're all part of. If you don't want to look at the soft skills, then if you want to look at the hard skills, because a lot of parents look at the hard skills, then it's performance based.
Yeah.
It's if kids sleep well and they eat well, you reduce 50% of the problems right there. Going back to the other thing that you were saying is, I think the new generation. If I interview people in the 1990s, there was a certain flavor in the interview with Romanians, and it was challenging to find people that I wanted to hire. Today, fast forward it, and I'm interviewing people. I keep having to ask them, have you lived outside of Romania? I see a huge difference in their exposure, in their passion, in their just their way of being is different. It's completely different. So you have other challenges, like they want things now and they're not willing to persevere. So the advice I'd give today's generation of Romanians have improved a lot in the sense that they're really are voicing what they want. They have a more clear idea what they want, where in the old days they were afraid to do that.
That's absolutely right.
Right. So that's the good side of things. I see a great transition of they're passionate, they know what they want, they're demanding it. That's beautiful. On the other hand, the advice I'd give this generation, which was contradictory to the other generation, is slow down. It's like they want everything now.
Yeah.
And it's creating a disbalance. So that's the only advice I would give. That doesn't mean don't be ambitious. Don't go out and get what you want. Fight for what you need. Be a problem solver. Go out in the world and do something. But you have time. You don't. We
actually only have 3 more minutes left of the show. But for all of those people who are going to be watching who live outside of Romania, and again, maybe they're thinking, I would want to come back, and for them it's an emotional situation, but they're thinking about their children's future. Just from your perspective as an entrepreneur and as a team leader, as the leader of group that includes a lot of young people who have wonderful lives. They have good lives here in Romania. If you would talk to those Romanians who have high school kids and they would want to come back, what would you tell them about Romania?
Well, in the last 2 years, we have opened our doors up in the sense that it wasn't only Bucharest. We're talking all of Romania in the sense that our school now has a foundation. We're training teachers around the world, around Romania, rural, because we can't change the system in general. It's too big, the educational system, and sometimes schools are too resistant. So we've decided to work from the bottom up, working with teachers, train teachers, work with them, give them the tools. I have been so amazed of all the teachers around Romania who are so passionate, so alive, so hungry. And I start to see small changes, small movements going on in Cluj and Timișoara, groups of teachers that are all hungry and getting in on sort of Google Hangout sessions and Skype sessions and weekly things that we're doing and trainings. So I just see all these lively bubbles popping up all over Romania. We see them, it's not just I'm factual about it because we're in contact with over 100 teachers now all over Romania that we're training as our foundation. And so that's exciting to see, that there is a movement. I mean, we hear the negative things on the TV and the politics and the corruption, all that things, but on the ground, it's still challenging. I'm not saying I'm not naive to say it's not challenging. And we hear stories of things going on in schools that are under-resourced and so forth. But the hope I believe is in the beautiful heart and passion of the Romanian people that are so, as you said, they have this beautiful emotional heart and they demand connection. They're hungry for something more. And these 20-year-olds and 25-year-olds in rural areas have really given me hope and have surprised me.
That's great. And
Yeah, I confirm that there's so much going on. I mean, again, technology gives online trainings. Kids can pick whatever they want, wherever they sit in Romania. So that's one thing that indeed there are teachers very open for courses like theater classes. We are working with an NGO that actually does this, and it's very beautiful. It teaches kids real life skills that they need not only for the job. And these kids that I see, they're really, they're smart because they used all the information we didn't have access to. So Romania became a very international place. So you find here great jobs. There's no need really to go elsewhere. Romania is a place where you can, from here you can anywhere, yeah, and you can come back. It is, for me, it's amazing what in this country happened over the years, and I can only encourage to stay connected. To actually come back or try or send kids here, you will not regret, because again, what is happening is real life. There's so much going on. Timișoara, Cluj, Sibiu, Brașov, Bucharest, everywhere. That is culture life. There are movements. There are startups. There's so much going on. And that's a kind of a bit what we lost in Western Europe. Western Europe, we have now huge issues, and there's also kind of a depression there. So we should not be blind to think that everything, that the grass is not so much greener over there. Mm. And there is, the young kids should look very careful how the world is changing. And Romania is a good place to stay now, but you have to do something. You have to work. And it's nothing for granted. It all costs. It costs time. It costs your passion. But it's all worth. And
this is too much wisdom for Saturday morning. Yes. But you're absolutely right. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming here today. And I hope you enjoyed this edition of Coffee and Stories. I'll see you really soon with 2 other very interesting guests. Until then, stay close, stay connected to Romania, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.